We're living in a world of fragmentation, disruption, and innovation. And we have just welcomed the first crypto president in the US. We are in front of the markets in crypto assets regulation in Europe. But today at this specific Chatham House Rules panel, Adrian was moderating it. And we were talking about the fragmentation of the world, political dynamics, trade wars. So what are the key takeaways?
Look, Monty, I think it was a fascinating discussion because we had so many different views in the room. And I think what's important about discussions at places like this is not just hearing the same old voices from Europe. Europe has an important role to play in the world, but it's had that role for a long time. We need to hear voices from South America. We need to hear voices from Asia. We need to hear voices from economies that don't find themselves listened to on big global issues. And I think that fragmentation you're talking about, we heard from people in the room how frustrating it is that their opinions, their decision-making, their interests are not seen to be important in some of the big global conversations that are happening. I think that's a bit of a wake-up call to some of those big institutions.
And wake-up call is truly what has been also discussed, the Draghi report, right? Saying that Europe is in problem, it's in danger to lose its power in economies, the political structures are falling apart, and this might have tremendous impact on global trade and companies. How do you see that? Is it now really a big problem or challenge for Europe, or is it an opportunity?
Europe has an incredible array of institutional and human capital resources to put into the world. But if it focuses just on its own problems and itself, too much self-reflection is not necessarily good for you. And I think for Europeans to go back out into the world and actually engage businesses as politicians, to actually be much more involved in developing a European voice. I think that's what Draghi was trying to say. He was trying to say we need some coordination, we need some messaging, we need some Europeanness out there, actually front and center, so that people don't just say, oh, is this Spanish point of view? Is this the Portuguese point of view? Is this the German point of view? There needs to be a European point of view in the world. And I think people would actually appreciate that, because in a fragmented world, coming together is actually a strong way of dealing with some of that problem.
And with the fragmentation, we also learned that it comes with problems in terms of global trade or trade settlements and monetary flow from different borders. And especially now, as we have sanctioned countries, we have different political interests, we have now this new Chinese political environment who are embracing it a little bit differently than the US. I also noticed that we are now facing an opportunity, because this, things, if the monetary system had been working for ages, it worked. Like, we didn't need to innovate. But suddenly, like the Eastern European countries, Russia especially, China, and now Brazil, and so they are innovating and pushing a lot. We had the other guests who said that they're now using Haval systems for trade and settlement. We've learned from the Bank of International Settlement who's using SWIFT, and now we are seeing that these are being replaced with new systems, whether it's blockchain powered or just something else. But it's a time for change. Where do you see is the biggest change happening?
Look, I think you made a very powerful point when you said that, this fragmentation is happening. Practice moves faster than politics in this world. What people do starts to create its own dynamic, and it starts to shape the environment in which politicians and politics find themselves. And I think that's something that global publics and global political leaders and policymakers haven't really gotten to grips with, because they haven't seen the countless micro transactions and the countless kind of micro uses of some of these technologies that build up and suddenly become a big deal, and suddenly become something that have geopolitical consequences and actually make a difference in the world. And we're starting, I think, as you rightly said, to see that. And I don't think quite that a lot of policymakers and politicians have gotten to grips with what that means, and what that means for national interests, what that means for group interests, and what that means for the next 10 to 20 years. And I think we need to start having those kind of conversations. Otherwise, we're in danger of letting people kind of carry on that fragmentation and not really understanding what its consequences are.
So what is for sure is the next couple of years will be fascinating. We are at the tipping point in Europe. So I think with that, we are saying goodbye from Davos, and we are looking to a fragmented, innovative environment that businesses like us and others can thrive. Thanks, Adrian, for joining us.
Cheers, Monty.